All of our early PCs had displays that were analog, meaning that the image that was going to be displayed on the monitor was created by the graphics card in analog format. It wasn't zeros and ones. And then it was passed through the cable to the display and it appeared. And then, lo and behold, a few years later, we got digital displays. And this is just streaming zeros and ones out to make it a very oversimplistic version here. And it's using this data without having to translate it onto the monitor. And so what you get now is a question, well, wait a minute, which one would I need to use, analog or digital? And so let's discuss that so that you will understand the differences on the A+ exam. The best way to understand the differences is two little equations here. First of all, analog means VGA, okay, video graphics array. It is what you grew up on computers, if you're old enough, that is. But if you had the old cathode ray tubes, if you have the little small, I think it's a 20 pin, 25 pin VGA connection. I can't remember my pins here because I'm thinking live on a video. But if we're using a VGA connection, you're looking at an analog signal for your monitor. If you're using a DVI connector, then you're using a digital signal. Okay, so just make sure that's probably as much as you'll need to know. A lot of times VGA is analog, DVI is digital. Now what's the big difference between these? The big difference is that analog signals are passed through a VGA connection cable from the graphics card to the monitor, and once they get to the monitor, it has to translate that signal into a form that can then be painted onto the display. Now, quality is lost in the translation almost any time you translate something, especially from analog into another form. You lose a little something, and that's certainly true with the image when you're working in analog. So let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages. Well, the advantages of digital over analog is that you don't have any signal loss due to conversion, because the image comes from the graphics card in digital format. It's passed to the monitor. Any kinds of manipulations of the signal, it all stays in digital 0 and 1 format, so there's no signal loss and you just get a better picture. Next, there's less cost since there's less electronic circuitry required because there's not a lot of conversion taking place in the monitor. Then with analog, the advantages of analog over digital is simply that VGA is everywhere. You can go into banks or legal law firms or old companies where they have all kinds of old computer equipment everywhere, and guess what? They've all got VGA connectors on them, right? And those old monitors are VGA, and the graphics cards are VGA. So it's widely compatible. Now, what are the disadvantages of these? Well, with digital, and it's kind of hard to find disadvantages on digital, to be quite frank, but a digital requires a graphics card with a digital output, meaning a DVI output. Those are becoming pretty standard now, but we'll go with that as a disadvantage for now. Also, digital tends to be going through some changing standards. You have a couple of different standards of DVI. It's not a huge deal, but it can be problematic sometimes. With analog, the disadvantages, the cable itself is sensitive to external interference, EFI, and it will hinder it. You also get that quality loss due to the signal conversion. But just make sure you understand the main difference between analog and digital. Analog is VGA, digital is DVI. Digital, get a display sometime that's got a VGA and a digital in connection on it, two separate connections, one's VGA, one's DVI. And then find a computer that has a VGA out on the graphics card and a DVI out, and just switch those on the monitor, and you will see the digital DVI signal appears to be brighter, crisper, sharper. You'll just like it better. It's not drastically different, but it's different enough that you notice and you don't want to go back to VGA. So anyway, that's kind of the difference between analog or digital displays.